Hey everybody, here we are back at Tropical Acres. Here we are with Alex, and today we're going to be talking about Little Gem mangoes. And the mango trees. So, how you doing, Alex?
Good. I'm near the end of my mango season right now, so I'm kind of happy about that to a certain degree. So
for the record of this video, it's right now the summer of 2021. I think we hear some people trimming some trees, right?
Yeah, Jack's out there working on the big Edward trees right now, so he's pruning some of those back. Some of those trees haven't been pruned in a very long time.
And
so.
It's the best time to prune trees is right after you pick them, pretty much.
Yeah,
all the mangoes.
As soon as the last fruit comes off, is the old saying, is the best time to prune your mango tree. So those trees have had their fruit actually off for a few weeks for the most part, so they're getting pruned now, and hopefully after a couple of growth flushes they'll be able to fruit next year, certainly in future seasons.
Now, is it bad to take them off? Let's say there's like 2 or 3 mangoes still on there. Does it make a difference, or do you need to wait till they're all off?
I like to wait until every single fruit is off, and the tree usually does too. So suppose like you've got a tree that you're not pruning, but it still has some mangoes on it. The tree will often wait until every single fruit is off before it flushes growth on its own. So I do like to wait, but you don't necessarily have to wait until the last fruit is off. You can, do some of the tree and leave that little bit that's got the mangoes on it, but I prefer to wait until the final fruit has actually been removed. So.
Okay, so today we're talking about some late season mangoes, and specifically Little Gem.
Right, so Little Gem was a seedling from Gary Zill's breeding project. It is a seedling of the Julie mango, of course, the famous Julie from the Caribbean, very popular in Jamaica and Trinidad, where it's probably originally from. Gary did use that variety a little bit in his breeding program, and so there's a few Julie seedlings of his that we grow here. Another one from that program that was a Julie seedling is 4026, which is a mango that I've talked about to other people as well. And another one is the Super Julie and the Juliet. Those are all Julie seedlings that came from Gary Zill's breeding project. Now, Little Gem has the notoriety of being a later season mango compared to the other ones that I just mentioned. And so there aren't very many late season mangoes compared to the early and mid-season varieties. And for that reason, mango season tends to come to a shuddering halt relatively quickly after the mid-season mangoes are finishing up. So late season mangoes are pretty valuable for that reason. There's just not as many of them around. So we have on this property 4 Little Gem trees, and so a couple of them are on dwarfing rootstocks, and then we have one on regular turpentine rootstock as well. That happens to be our largest Little Gem tree. But anyway, so Julie was one of the parents. We're not sure what the other parent was, but there's some speculation that it might have been the Gary mango. A lot of the hybrids that Gary Zill did, the paternal parent was Gary, so that pollen was very present when he did that breeding project. So the cool thing about Little Gem trees,
stand next to it here.
And there's one right here, okay? This is a Little Gem. They're kind of dense trees, relatively compact. Now this one is on a dwarfing rootstock, so this isn't necessarily what a tree this age will be like. We'll show you a larger tree planted in a similar period of time in a little bit. But they're really, really good producers. They flower pretty readily, but they set lots of mangoes too. And it's not a big fruit, but you can see here, they can get about the size of a baseball, but maybe if the tree isn't as heavily loaded and you thin it out, the fruit can get a little larger. And I have seen that before, on Little Gem trees that Gary Zill grew that he thinned out, and he got larger fruit from his. So, but we didn't thin this, and so this is just what the crop looks like without any thinning. It's usually a very clean mango, very disease resistant. We've not had any issues with bacterial black spot on these trees. They don't seem to get really any anthracnose either. So they make these just real pretty, not like, they won't turn like a bright red or anything, but they'll get some nice pastel colors to them. And I'll have to look and see if I can find a ripe one on this tree somewhere. Well, I'll probably find one under one of them because we've already started to get some ripe mangoes on this, but most of the crop is still here and hasn't been picked yet. And here we are, it's, what is it, middle of July 14th or 15th or whatever. And this tree still has most of its fruit. So obviously this tree is going to have fruit definitely into August. So that qualifies it as a late season mango for sure. And as far as the flavor goes, this has what we call an West Indian flavor. It does not, to me, taste like the Julie mango, you know, or the Kerry, which some of these other Julie progeny, like Juliet, for example, tastes kind of similar to Kerry to me. This is definitely more of a flavor that mangoes like Jakarta and Sunrise and Bombay share. It's kind of in that group to me. I call that the West Indian flavor because it refers to mangoes grown in South India as well as mangoes grown in the West Indies often share this trait. So there's a little bit of spice to this mango and a mango that people that love Indian mangoes can appreciate. And what's great is that most of the Indian mangoes are usually finished by the late season. There's really not many late season Indian mangoes beyond the Neelam, which is pretty late, but most of the other late season mangoes are classically flavored. Old Florida varieties like Kent and Kit, Palmer, Beverly are classically flavored mangoes. And so this has something to offer in terms of a different flavor from those that appeals to those that love the Indian type mangoes. So that's what's really cool about Little Gem. So I've thought about adding more of this because of how impressive it is as far as a late season tree is concerned. So we'll see how they taste this year, but I'm expecting they'll be pretty good.
Now, how old is this tree here?
So this tree was planted, I want to say this was planted in 2017 when we planted a lot of these other ones over here. So this tree's probably 5 years old or something like that at this point. It is on one of Gary's dwarfing stocks. I can't remember if this one's on rootstock A or H, these are turpentine off types that Gary found to dwarf certain kinds of mangoes. It's definitely slowed the growth down on this tree quite a bit. So, you know, that's a good thing. We want our trees to be manageable and not really aggressive growing. And there's another one right over here by it. So another Little Gem right here. And very fruitful, productive tree.
Wow.
You can see this one's starting to get some color on the top. Okay, so this one is on a dwarfing stock as well.
So the size of the tree will determine on the stock it's on and also the type of tree it is, right?
Sure. So like, this isn't necessarily a super vigorous mango to begin with, and I'll show you our tree that's on regular turpentine in a moment, but definitely the rootstock has a big influence as well as the variety, and so if you get a slower growing variety on a dwarfing rootstock, you could get a really small tree potentially. But let's go take a look
Now I see you have one there and you have one here.
Yeah.
How far are these two Little Gems from each other?
These trees are 16 feet apart from one another.
And what's in the middle?
In the middle is actually a sapodilla. I don't know what kind this was. This is a moraina sapodilla tree. Mangoes are actually meant to be temporary, but because they're on that dwarfing stock, we're hoping we can get away with growing them between the sapodillas for an extended period of time, and then these trees will get moved to another spot. So we'll dig them out and we'll put them in a different part of the property, or we'll put them on a different property. Because we want to keep these ones that are on this dwarfing rootstock. So we'll find a space for them for sure. We won't just cut them down. But I'll show you our biggest one over here. Okay.
So you have 4 on the property.
Yeah, we have 4 on the property. So we have another one that's on a different dwarfing stock, I think, than those are.
Now, when you buy a tree, how important it is to know what dwarfing stock is it on, or do you just know because you're really into this?
So Gary Zill's done some trials with dwarfing stocks and has found that they dwarf certain kinds of mangoes, and actually some of them they can make more vigorous. Otherwise, we know some mangoes act as dwarfing stocks on a range of varieties. Like there's one that we grow called the Piva. The Piva will dwarf a lot of Indian descended mangoes. Old Florida varieties have been shown to be dwarfed by it in South Africa. So we grow that one here and offer it to people who want something grafted to a dwarfing stock, but we don't guarantee that it will dwarf everything, because it won't. But it will dwarf a number of varieties. And so there's a few other mangoes out there that have been trialed as rootstocks that can dwarf certain kinds of mango trees. And we don't have them all, but it's something that a lot of people are really interested in, because there's mangoes that are very aggressive and don't fit well in small yards or situations where there's not a lot of space. And perhaps they could be grown in those situations with a dwarfing rootstock. And the dwarfing rootstock may also make those trees more precocious, meaning they'll bear at a younger age, which is awesome too.
But most places, when you buy a mango tree, they don't tell you what the rootstock is.
Most of the time, well, first one thing, most nurseries will obtain their mango trees from wholesale suppliers, so they won't necessarily know a lot about the origins of the rootstock and what kind of interactions there would be or what have you. But rootstock does play a role. Most Florida grown mango trees, produced mango trees, are grafted on turpentine rootstock. Turpentine comes true from seed a pretty high percentage of the time. I would say in greater than excess of 80% of the time. So most turpentine rootstock is pretty uniform, but you get off types, and those off types can behave differently. And sometimes you have trees that are grafted to turpentine rootstock that don't behave the way that you would expect. We have a Valencia Pride that is on turpentine rootstock that has grown really slowly. And that's remarkable, because normally Valencia Pride is like the bamboo of mango trees and grows really aggressively, and it can be hard to control. So perhaps that has something to do with the location it's in, but perhaps that turpentine that was used for that Valencia Pride came up differently, and it's an off type, and maybe it dwarfs Valencia Pride. So it's hard to say. But rootstock is something that's not well studied with mango. There's lots of topics with mango that aren't very well researched or studied as a crop in general. But it's something that maybe research institutions down the road can study a little bit more intensely, because there's so many benefits to a dwarfing rootstock or any kind of rootstock that can potentially make the tree more productive. So.
Okay.
So this is a little gem that we have that's on regular turpentine, as far as we know, and you can see it is definitely taller than the other trees that we were just by.
Same amount of age, right?
Probably grafted roughly the same time, but you can see it's significantly taller and wider. It's still not too bad for when we planted it, but it's getting bigger, and probably another year or two will require a more significant pruning. So, but it hasn't been too bad. It's you can see really productive, very clean, beautiful fruit, and I'm pretty happy with this tree. I see there's a ripe one over here that I can pick up. See, this one started to yellow up a little bit, so this will be ready to eat pretty soon. But most of its crop won't be coming for until over the next few weeks.
Great, so that's your third tree that you have here?
This is the third one, and we have a fourth one back over there that way. That one is the smallest of
Oh, that's
the
a
four.
small, so
Yeah.
this is the biggest one.
This is the biggest one, yeah.
And the smallest one, was that just planted later, or is it on different rootstock?
It's on a dwarfing rootstock.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it might. Some of them are on rootstock H, and some of them are rootstock A. Those are two of Gary's dwarfing rootstocks. He's got other ones, but he trialed those.
But these aren't necessarily dwarf trees.
No, I don't think this is a dwarf variety. I think it's not too bad. I mean, it probably has a growth habit similar to Carrie or something like that. So it's like maybe a moderately vigorous tree at most. But definitely a tree you could probably keep on the smaller side with pruning, because of how regularly it fruits and the fact that it fruits at a young age. So I'm not too concerned about this tree's growth habit or its rate of growth. I don't think it's too bad. So it's not super vigorous.
Sure. Well, what about the name Little Gem? I mean, where'd that come from?
I'm not sure how they came up with that name, actually, but that's what they call it, and it's stuck. So You know, it was a numbered variety, 29 dash something, I think. I don't remember its numerical designation
Yes.
in the old planting, but anyway, but that's the name. It doesn't get very big. You know, the fruit doesn't. So
Yes.
you know, I guess that's
Alrighty.
appropriate.
Well, thank you very much. If anyone wants to purchase one of these trees, if you want to get budwood for this, or if you want to get the fruit, check out the link below to Alex's farm here, and they're all available.
Yeah, I think Little Gem is a good choice for somebody looking for a late season mango that's very disease resistant and very delicious. I've had some excellent fruit from this tree, so hopefully this one starts to become more popular amongst people that want late season mangoes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.